Hello, I'd like to call this meeting for the Pinal County Community College District Governing Board Public Hearing Special Meeting Agenda. So number one is call to order, and number two, please join me in the salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, now we'll have the public hearing over the proposed CAC district budget for 26-27. Number three is review of the 26-27 district budget by Terry Quest. If you'll come up, please, Mr. Quest.
Hello, everyone. Distinguished board members, President Gilbert, and board members. Today, I'd like to present to the governing board our finalized budget. We met a while back, a couple weeks ago, in a board work session, and then later we discussed and shared with the members of the group here that our drafted budget. And today I'd like to present that budget to the board for a review and approval. And first I want to mention too also that there's no changes that have been made or revisions to the budget the last time we met together back in April, on April 21st. So, and we have not had any concerns or heard anything from the public, general public about it, so we can move forward with that as well. Thank you, unless you have any other any questions on it. All right.
No, not at this time. Go ahead.
Thank you.
All right. So let's see. Next is call to the public. So we have one person that signed up, Steve Hessler. Mr. Hessler, if you please stand up, get up to the mic, state your name and address. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'm Steve Hetzler, 10299 East Second Water Trail in Gold Canyon. Good afternoon, administration, board, and community. At the presentation of the draft budget last month, I appreciated that more time in the budget was presented at that meeting than all of last year. I held off on specific comments on the budget and said I look forward to what comments the board would have on the budget. While they were presented more information than last year, just like last year, there was no discussion on that budget. Crickets, silence. Once when I spoke last year, I brought up Parkinson's law of triviality on the tool shed theory, where time and resources spent on a task are often inversely proportional to the importance of or complexity. In his example, approving plans for nuclear power plants were quickly approved when more time was spent debating the constitution of construction of a simple bicycle shed, where everyone could understand and have opinions about. Today, I expect to hear more discussions on dedicating a boardroom than a discussion of a budget, as well as discussions of wildly important goals, which, while laudable, pales in comparison to the budget, impact of the budget. In the last meeting, we were told a program saved students $227,000 on textbooks, which one of the board members applauded. What was not discussed was that at the same time, tuition fees rose $2.1 million or 25%. Of that, or that the cost of instruction rose $395,000, or only 1.4%, while administration rose $3 million or 16.5%, and student services rose $706,000 or 7.3%. The cost of these two categories now equals the cost of instruction. The 17.4% increase in academic support may have mitigated the sparse increase in instruction, and when added to instruction, exceeds the cost of administration and student services. But we may never know. If you've forgotten, when I asked for job descriptions of 44 non-instructional supervisors, I was refused the information, told that my questions were unsustainable, despite the fact that a study the college paid for said there seemed to be overstaffing and suggested job descriptions. The board, again, was silent. Crickets. Whether it's because you don't know or don't care, I can only speculate, but I think you individually know the answer. While the board and administration may not appreciate my questions, I hope they appreciate that I'm focusing on important questions and not distracting them with minutia, and have suspended new questions in this period of transition. I look forward to working with the new administration in the short term and new board members in the longer term to ensure that the district is transparent and accountable to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have special meeting adoption of the 2026-2027 district budget. Number 5, adoption of the 2026-2027 district budget. And any discussion? Dr. Odion?
Move to adopt the proposed budget.
Okay, do I have a second? Okay, I have a second. Motion second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Budget's adopted. Okay, next item, I'll adjourn this meeting, and then we'll start the next one. So this meeting's adjourned. Let me scroll down to the next one. And now we'll start. All right. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the Pinal County Community College District Governing Board meeting of May 19th, 2026. First item is call to order. And we'll note that everyone is here. All the board members are here. And the adoption of the agenda is next. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Have a motion second to adopt the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Chair votes aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, call to the public. Do we have anybody in call to the public? Okay, we don't at this point. Thank you. Move on. And let's go to number 4, consideration of consent agenda. We have different items on here, A through I, and we will be pulling item G, and we'll hear it separately on the agenda, the chairman's privilege. And so do I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda minus G? A motion and a second. Adopt the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Chair votes aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we'll have item G, and we're going to have Terry Quest, please come up. He's going to introduce our speaker.
Thank you once again. This item is referred to as Series 2026 Revenue Bond Revision to our bond underwriting proposition or goal here is to go out and get $30 million of bonds. And so we have a presentation that Nick Dodd will present to us concerning it and share some information about the bond industry and the purpose of the bonds. And I will turn that time over to him, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
There we go. Good afternoon, members of the board, staff, and guests. My name is Nick Dodd. I'm with Raymond James. We've worked with the college for a number of years on both general obligation bonds through your election from a little more than a decade ago, and also a series of revenue bonds that have been undertaken by the college dating back over 20 years. I'm here today to give you a brief update on the market, the bond market, interest rate market, and also then talk about the opportunity the college is considering with regards to issuing bonds. So I'll jump into a market update. Obviously, interesting times right now in the market. There's a lot going on in the country and in the world. I think coming into 2026, the expectation was that rates would go gradually lower. But there's been a number of factors. Inflation has been higher than expected, in part because of tariffs and now because of energy, what they're referring to as the energy shock, and it's a result of the war, very elevated gas prices, And so that's created a lot of people to kind of pause with regards to expectations around interest rates. And what we've seen in the very near term is interest rates have actually started to rise a little bit over the last month or so. With inflation, the expectation that the Fed would cut rates as the year goes on, which was the expectation coming into the year, has kind of diminished. And so there's not a lot of certainty around where the interest rate market will go. And so we've kind of seen for the last few months, interest rates have just kind of stayed stable. What are other things we look at when we look at the market and the economy? The stock market's doing very well. There is a lot of volatility, but it's doing well. As noted, inflation is elevated, but the employment market is doing still pretty well too. So all in all, the economy is in pretty good shape. When it comes to the college, as a government, you enjoy the benefit of being able to sell bonds that are tax exempt. And what that means is that investors in your bonds don't have to pay income taxes on the interest they earn. And so as a result, your rates are typically lower than, say, what the federal government or private sector has to pay when they borrow money. And so in the municipal market, there's an index which is tracked every day. It's called MMD, and so we track that. MMD stands for Municipal Market Data. And so if you look at the MMD index, obviously it changes every day, but over the last month rates are slightly higher, but over the last year they're lower, and that's, you see that in the green chart there. They're about anywhere between 10 and 30 basis points lower over the last year, and that's really a function of coming into this year. The expectation was that rates would go lower. And then the relationship between municipals and Treasury, we follow the Treasury market, which is the taxable market. That's what the federal government borrows at. That's what mortgage rates are set at. But then obviously, because of the tax exempt nature, we're not at the exact same levels. So we have followed the market kind of generally. I'll go back to interest rates in just a minute too with another chart, but I want to touch real quick on long-term issuance trends. So this is the part of the market that is supply and demand. So obviously, as there's more supply, the question is there demand to meet that supply? In 2025, we had $580 billion in issuance throughout the year around the country. It's the largest amount of municipal bonds sold in any one year as long as it's been tracked. So we had a record year last year, and it was absorbed well. Investor demand was there. Through the first 4 months of this year, we're tracking at about 4% ahead of schedule, or ahead of where we were last year. So we've continued to see elevated issuance, but it's also been met with strong demand from investors. So our expectation is, as the college were to move forward, if you pursue the issuance of bonds, that we would see strong demand for the college's debt. This is kind of a fun chart. Kind of looks like a heart attack. What this looks at is interest rates over the last really, almost 40 years or more. And for the college's benefit, you've issued debt during this time period. So if you think about 2012 is when you had an election for the GO bonds. So that's kind of in the middle of the chart, kind of at that peak post-financial crisis. So during the financial crisis, the Fed took rates low because the economy was in shock, the housing market was in shambles, and they lowered rates to try and revive the economy. Coming out of the financial crisis, we saw a rise in rates, and then rates gradually were trending lower. The college sold both of your GO bond issues from the new money. During that downward trend, we refinanced some bonds in 2016. And then we also sold revenue bonds in 2017, which I think helped pay for some of this building, if I remember correctly. And then, if you remember, COVID hit, and that was a lot of fun. That's like when we almost died on this chart, the very low part there. And that's because the Fed took interest rates to basically zero and kept them there for a very long period of time. That was an attempt to keep the economy going as it was essentially being shut down to fight the pandemic. In 2021, the college did refinance again some of your general obligation bonds. Those savings got passed on to the taxpayers in the form of lower tax rates. And then coming out of the pandemic a few years ago, in an attempt to battle inflation, which we're still battling today, the Fed started raising rates. And so that's to the right-hand side of the chart. You see where there's a pretty steep jump in rates. And that was coming out of the pandemic. And you can kind of see they've stayed elevated and even started to creep higher. You know, the reality is where we're at today is in probably a more normal interest rate environment. We all just got spoiled living through the pandemic when car loans were free, mortgages were sub 3%, and everybody free. It was free money, right? And everyone loves free money, but unfortunately, that's not sustainable. And so today, we're kind of in what's probably closer to average interest rates, and that's what this next chart will show you. So this is going back to now just the tax-exempt interest rate, the MMD, and so the blue line, moving from left to right, is left is 1 year, right is 30 years. The blue line, that's the average interest rate since 1993, so similar to the chart we just looked at that went down and up. And then the red line is where interest rates are today compared to that blue line average. And you can see, other than on the short end of the yield curve, the first couple of years, interest rates are either right where we've been on average or even a little bit below, kind of in years 5 through about almost 18 or 19. We're just below. So I share this with you just to give you some perspective on, even though it feels like interest rates are elevated, it's really our perception of where we came from just a few years ago, and that on average, we're kind of right where we've been over a very long period of time. And so for issuers considering borrowing, it's not a bad time to get into the market. And as the college has done many times over the years, in recent years, if you have opportunities to refinance debt in the future, you will. And or you'll at least consider it. Whether you decide to do it would be up to you. And we'll actually talk about that in just a minute. Finally, on the market, just so where are rates going? What's the crystal ball? You know, the war is going to end. It's all going to be perfect. I'm just kidding. I don't know how it's going to end. But what we do believe is that interest rates are going to, the hope and expectation is, but the war and some of the uncertainty around it has really thrown, you know, kind of some uncertainty in that. But the expectation is that rates will largely stay where they're at now for the foreseeable future. 6 months ago, we would have told you we think they're going to be lower by the end of this year. We just don't see that. The economists that are surveyed don't really see that. And that's in large part due to this inflation that remains sticky, and people expect to remain sticky because of high energy prices that exist today. People do expect the employment market to stay relatively stable. AI is a big unknown there. And the expectation is that inflation will slow down, but it'll be gradual. And that's why we don't expect interest rates to move all that much. So now moving away from the market, and I'd be happy to answer any questions as we go through or at the end of the presentation, we'll turn our attention to the item before the board today, which is the issuance of potential revenue bonds. So staff at the college has been working for a while and identified approximately $13 million in new money projects or additional bonds that may need to be sold to help fund projects on various campuses. As a reminder, revenue bonds are repaid from tuition and fee, dorms, food service, other revenues that are generated by the college through your operations. And that's what's pledged to those bonds. The college last sold bonds in 2017 for the new science building and the new student union building. And those 2017 bonds are actually callable today or this year. And what that means is when when you get a mortgage, if rates go lower next month, you could refinance that mortgage immediately. There might be some costs associated with doing it, but you could evaluate that. In the bond market, it's not uncommon that bonds can't be called or refinanced for a period of up to 10 years. So 2017, when the bonds were sold, we're almost at that 10-year mark. Those bonds were sold with a 9-year call. We're in the 9th year right now. So that's why those bonds can be called and potentially refinanced if the savings seem to make sense to the district. And so given that the college is thinking about selling some new money bonds, there's a lot of economies of scale, efficiencies of potentially combining that with a refinancing. So on the following page, and I apologize for the small font, particularly when it's projected up there. Hopefully you can see it a little bit better. But so currently, of those 2017 bonds, there's $16.6 million in bonds that remain outstanding after this July that could be refinanced. And the average interest rate on those bonds is 4.7%. And our current estimate of interest rates today for refinancing of those remaining 10 years is 3.2%. So obviously there's a difference there of about 1.5%. That 1.5% on $16 million paid back over the next 10 years, recognizing you pay principal down every year, so your outstanding balance is diminishing. The forward look, cash flow savings to the college is over $1.3 million in savings from doing a refinancing. And in today's dollars, that's over $1.1 million. And so those are certainly strong savings. If you think about the savings expressed as a percentage of how much debt is being refinanced, it's over 6%. And a lot of benchmarks or, in the municipal industry would say anything above 3% you should consider. So you're currently at double that savings percentage. And when you add that to the fact that you're considering selling new money bonds as well, just the efficiency of doing them together makes a lot of sense because you don't pay costs twice and that kind of thing. So a really nice level of savings could be realized, which could then help pay for some of the new bond project debt service. So finally, what are the next steps if the college were to move forward? We're seeking final approval today from the board. We will have to seek a bond rating. The college has been rated in the past, so we would go back to the rating agency, seek a rating. We would also look to get the bond issue qualified for bond insurance. That will raise the rating and lower your cost of borrowing. Community colleges do have to seek review by what's called the Joint Committee on Capital Review, or JCCR. Sometimes they just send a letter saying your project's been approved. Sometimes you have to actually go to the Capitol and appear before the committee. And then we would finalize the legal documents, the prospectus, which was what investors look at to make a decision as to whether or not they want to invest in the bonds. The goal would be to lock in the interest rates in late July or early August, and then hopefully have the money in the bank by the end of August. And that would also be when the old bonds would be called away from investors and the new bonds would then be outstanding. And for the college, the key date is when we price or lock in those interest rates. That's when you would lock in your kind of new cost of capital for the new buildings. That's also when you would be able to lock in the interest rate savings on the refinancing of the old debt. So until we do that, which is right now probably 2 months away, there is obviously interest rate risk that unfortunately there's really no ability to hedge that or lock it in until we go through all these procedures we just talked about. That was a lot in a short period of time. I'm happy to answer any questions or turn it back over to Terry or the board.
Any questions from the board? Wait, Mike. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Will we see a copy of those slides? Can we get that?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, absolutely. this presentation's been shared with staff, and they can get it to you. And we're always happy to also, in the fall, to come back after the sale and kind of do a report post-closing and show you final savings and how the pricing compared to what our expectations were.
Okay. Any other questions? So I think the motion, I would think, correct me if I'm wrong, would be to approve refinancing existing bonds and issuing new bonds. Is that correct? Yeah. Would that be the proper motion? That we would approve, to approve refinancing existing bonds and issuing new bonds?
Yes, we'd be approving going out for the $30 million bonds. And as Nick had described to the board and the audiences, there's the 17 million and then the 13 million, but it's combined together for saving costs in the process. So we would be doing that. We would be technically refinancing 17 million, and then we would be issuing new $13 million that would be designated towards our construction of our CPAC or our performance arts. That's mainly where we're sending that money to, is over the time, building that wonderful building there. So.
Great. All right. So with that, do we have a motion to approve both the refinancing and also, okay. All right, so I have a motion to approve the items that we discussed. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Opposed? Motion carries. It's approved. Thank you so much. All right, next we have discussion, approval, disapproval of naming T116 to the Gladys Christensen Boardroom. President Elliott.
Good afternoon, President Lopez, governing board members, Mary Lou, faculty, staff, and guests. As you well know, we don't have a dedicated boardroom like many of our peers do. It is very time intensive for our IT and facilities department to prepare this room for board meetings. So in reviewing that and thinking about the best place to have a permanent boardroom on our campus, we've identified T116 as a room that would best fit a permanent boardroom. In as much, I feel, and I'm proposing to the board, that it is befitting to honor Gladys Christensen by naming the boardroom that will be a permanent boardroom. Obviously, this will not occur and happen until after the Performing Arts Center is built, because we do have an academic program that is housed in that room currently, but we wanted to make sure that this was done and approved by the board well before that time. As you know, Gladys served 40 years as a board member at CAC. She hired 7 of the 9 presidents. She was awarded in 2019 the Association of Community College Trustees Leadership Award, which is one of the highest awards given to community college trustees. So we have, per our policy, this has already gone to the foundation board for their approval of naming rights, and they unanimously approved it, and I present it here today before you to consider naming T116 the Gladys Christensen Boardroom and make it a permanent board meeting space.
Dr. Odeon, go ahead.
Having served with Gladys and been given my marching orders from day one by Gladys about how to behave on this board and how to be effective on this board, I think it's a wonderful way to remember her service, and I would move to adopt the proposal to name the room.
Great. Do I have a second? A motion is second to adopt the proposal to name T116 the Gladys Christensen Boardroom. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Opposed? Motion carries. It's named.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for all the backup information you provided. That was really good. Appreciate that. Okay, next we have discussion number 6, discussion approval, disapproval of First Amendment to IGA between the City of Apache Junction and Pinal County Community College District. And who's going to cover that? That's Terry.
I'll just stay up for the next 5 items. I don't want to dominate it by any means, but it's just the way it worked out. So this item presented to the board is really in relation to a agreement that was discussed many years ago you might be familiar with, back in the city of Apache Junction, related to our campus there, where we agreed to pay for creating a water retention area. And about, I think it's 12 acres or so, 12-acre kind of water retention area. And so it's been sitting there for a number of years, and now we made the decision that we need to move forward and take care of this item. And so this is a, in there you have the detailed IGA in there, but it's not to exceed 1.8 million. We have an agreement to pay over a 3-year period, a portion of it. Talking with them, they feel confident we might be getting under that, so that would be good news. But that's just moving forward with an agreement we had back in a number of years that we want to move forward with.
Questions? Do we have a motion to approve? A motion and a second? Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the item. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Chair votes aye. Opposed? Okay. Item number 6 is approved. Okay, item 7, discussion, approval, disapproval of the Second Amendment IGA between the City of Maricopa and Pinal County Community College District.
Yes, this is again another agreement we had with our campus that had, we made an agreement a number of years ago to put in landscaping, sidewalks along that one area by the campus. Somehow that it never happened for one reason or another. And so they were, I had a discussion with them, and we moved forward with, again, taking care of this one. This one's the same way. It's a maximum not to exceed about $852,245, and it's going to be paid over a 3-year period as well. Again, if it comes in, when my discussions with them, they said if it comes in less, of course, we pay less. So, but that'll be determined at probably the last 3rd year of the invoice when we decide what's going on there. But we just want to resolve this, get it taken care of. We have this budgeted in our capital as well as part of our budget that the board approved today, along with the other ones as well. So in a sense, I would say we're good to go on that and financing it and getting it done.
Although I need a motion to approve. I have a motion second to approve. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Chair votes aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 7. Number 8, discussion, approval, disapproval of First Amendment to IGA for multi-agency SWAT team. Yes, go ahead.
This is an agreement we have with our chief of police department, our police department, basically training. We have an individuals getting trained, and we have an agreement with them as well. And so it's just, again, goal is to train our individuals that are involved in law enforcement to be prepared for various situations, and we have an agreement to do that and go forward. So
That's with Pinal County, right?
yes, it is.
Okay. All right, any questions? Motion to approve? Have a motion and second to approve. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Chair votes aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We got that done. Number 9, discussion, approval, disapproval of IGA with City of Coolidge.
Yes, this is just another IGA agreement with them to share information with the city and with police and so forth, just services in general. Not much else I can bring attention on that particular one, but.
Okay. All right, any questions? Do I have a motion to approve? Do I have a motion to approve? Okay, second. All right. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Chair votes aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 9 is approved. Number 10, discussion of disapproval or approval of designated reserve funds for future facilities. Request.
This is a procedure process by which we designate our reserve for facilities. So we do have contingencies as well, and we have budgeted in our budget construction funds as well, but we also have funds that we can designate or move forward for facilities as well as construction. And so it's a procedural process, if you will, and just the board approving that we can move those funds from one fund, if you will, to another to do what we need to do.
Okay. All right, any questions on that item of the board? Nope. Need a motion to approve? A motion is second to approve. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Chair votes aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 10 is approved.
Thank you.
All right, next, reports. Number 11, report from College President on a Higher Learning Commission RN to BSN update.
Thank you, President Lopez. I have a couple really quick updates today. We have received final notice from the Higher Learning Commission that our RN to BSN has been approved. So very excited about that, second bachelor's degree program. Construction, as you can see, construction on the new Performing Arts Center is moving along very, very well. If you didn't notice, well, you could pulling in, which was also a challenge because of the installation of the solar panels, which has caused some of the parking issues, but that is going very well as well. The solar panels work has begun with the supports that are going in this week, and if you haven't looked in the H parking lot, you can kind of see that going up. Also, demolition of the Pence is moving along quite well as expected without any challenges or hiccups. And happy to answer any questions on those before I move on to a brief legislative update. Legislatively, both the House and the Senate have adjourned until June 1. So other than the bills that have been signed by the governor, there has been little movement on those that are still in committee or awaiting House or Senate action. So last month, I shared with you a few that had been signed by the governor, but many that were still in committee or awaiting a second and third read. So those are kind of stalled for now.
Wait on the budget, right?
The budget is the concentration.
Okay.
And that is all I have. Thank you.
Number 12, Business Affairs Report, Monthly Budget Report. Terry, Mr. Quest, back up.
Thank you. It's like deja vu, I think. Anyways, this is our monthly report for the month of March that basically covers really in reality from the beginning of the fiscal year, July into March as a cumulative results. So the March shows that our operating fund expenditures are 71.93% of the total budget. And this is an increase of about 4.07% from March of last year. We're comparing it from last year, which is about a 67.86%, which was 67 to 86% last year. So it was about a 4% increase. Well, we're still within budget, and I believe we're going to do great. We're not going to have any issues or anything to bring to the board that would be of concerns. We're on track based on our budget, and thank you, unless you have any other questions.
Great. No. Any questions on our budget, where we are at this point? Tracking really well, I think. So that's good. All right, thank you. All right, next we'll move into number 13, Wildly Important Goals and Outcomes Progress Report. Athletics, Shelby Barnett. Welcome. We have a display.
A little one.
Okay, that's good.
All right. Hi, my name is Shelby Barnett. I am the athletic director here, housed at the SPC campus, so thank you for having me today. I'm here to present our 40X project and the progress we've made over the last year and a half. Athletics had a goal of 40 activities in academic year to foster a sense of community that encourages social interaction, teamwork, and positive relationships. So the reason we picked this goal was because we have an extremely high retention rate currently with our student athletes. The challenge that we have faced is competing with larger schools that offer NLI and the transfer portal. So to combat that, we've decided that making this feel like home to them would keep them here for the full 2 years. So the results for athletics was we had 43 activities this year, so we exceeded our original goal of 40. I brought our scoreboard here, which we will go over in a minute, but we more than doubled what our goal was in 2024. So the rationale for picking this goal, and we had a lot of collective meetings to determine what the point of focus was going to be, and we did some research. Our research found that 93% of student athletes feel emotionally tied to a college when they have a sense of connection. Fostering community connections can boost the student experience. Strategic connection enhances retention, and we focused on building social muscles, as we like to call in athletics. Student retention and fostering connections are intrinsically linked. Today I had a meeting with track and field, and we talked about this specific goal and how it impacted certain students. And today we focused on one student who had a significant amount of challenges coming to CAC. Home life wasn't the best, financial struggles, trying to stay in the dorms. We started getting in trouble in the classroom, maybe having to go to the dean's office a few times, paying me visits, and we decided we need to invest more in this student, and how can we help this student be successful? So we brought him here. How are we going to keep him? That student ended up finishing with a 3.0 this semester and came home as a national champion in triple jump. We also talked about another student who came from another country, really struggled being here, being so far from home. The student came to CAC, ended up going to Grand Canyon, got a master's degree, and loves the community so much that he is moving to Casa Grande next month. So we came up with a scoreboard. We decided to make it similar to the Big Green Monster in Boston Red Sox to kind of highlight that we are, nationally known as a baseball school. So our months are represented by 1 through 12, representing the 12 months of the year, and we mapped them out by team. Some teams have overlapped 2 semesters, so it was more of a struggle for them to fit in so many activities, where other sports that were 1 semester maybe had more opportunities. And then we tallied our scores. So as you can see over here, we tallied all of them up for entire athletics. For the 25-26 school year, we had 43 activities to engage our students. This went from inviting community members for first pitches, youth camps, inviting youth teams from Coolidge to attend our basketball games free of charge, reading to local community schools like kindergarten, trying to find incentive to get our student athletes to come to our home events. So we would be like, oh, it's whiteout night, like all students come in free. We have this special section for you. So finding activities to draw them in and being more engaged. So next steps for us are going to start the data collection and how these events kind of help us retain our students. And we're starting to plan future projects based on current student needs. Our data collection is going to be most of our summer. We're focusing on 4-year universities our student athletes are transferring to. I know this is really small, but we have an Excel sheet that's shared amongst all of our coaches, and now that our students are graduating and getting scholarship offers to next universities, we're tracking this data once they sign letters of intent. On this first section, we're also tracking how many semesters they've attended CAC. We do have students that come and do really great, and then they get swooped up by 4-year schools. If that's the ultimate goal for us, it's still a success. Then we are also tracking student athletes who have graduated from CAC, but they are returning to start a new program. We do have some students that come, they compete for 2 years, and all of a sudden they get accepted to the nursing program. We have rodeo students who come, they compete, and then they can compete for another year, so they start a new program, and many times are leaving CAC with 2 degrees. We're also tracking first-year student athletes who are not returning to CAC and what's their next destination. For us, this is really important. If they're leaving CAC and going to another junior college, in our eyes, we failed. And so we want to keep those students, but if they're getting a 4-year offer and getting a 4-year degree paid for or getting NLI money to support that, then this is something that we can track and see, hey, we helped this student get to where their ultimate goal was. Lastly, we are tracking student athletes who have exhausted their eligibility at CAC but are not continuing athletics. This is important. So even though we are an athletic department and we live and breathe athletics, it's ultimately school and helping these students find careers and not jobs. And we say this because it's really important for our students if they want to go into esthetician school, if they want to be an ultrasound tech, a dental hygienist. Going 4-year school might not be in their best interest, so it's important for us to track what they're doing and making sure that we still have ownership in helping them get to those programs, just as we would help the students who are going to a 4-year school for athletics. And do we have any questions?
Any questions from the board?
The students that are staying around that come from another country are making sure that their student visas are up to date and everything's legal and up above board for them so they don't get trouble later on.
Yes, so a lot of them, once they transfer into 4-year schools, they'll have their I-20s renewed and make sure that, everything's active where they're going. The student I was referencing ended up applying and became an American citizen to stay here in the United States. We do have other students who end up getting work visas and stay. I think there was one a couple years ago who ended up getting a work visa and worked for Lucid. So, I think the pathway of coming here for athletics does help them learn the process and the importance of having these things in place so that when they do leave CAC, they're still, knowing that the requirements to be here.
Thank you.
Yep.
Wonderful. Any other comments or questions?
Thanks.
Yeah, great job. We all concur. Thank you so much for what you do.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate your time.
All right. Okay, next we have student enrollment from Andy Long. Andy? You have another photo for us, I heard. So let's see.
It wouldn't be an enrollment services wig without a scoreboard.
It's a work of art?
Still gotta wait though. Big reveal.
Oh, you're going to hold out on us. Okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mary Lou, President Elliott, Board President Lopez, members of the board, faculty, staff, and visitors. It's great to be back here for an enrollment WIG, what I like to say encore presentation. This time with an update on what we're doing with rolling out our new onboarding program. I promise this one comes with fewer cliffhangers and more guardrails to help you out, though. I think it's important to step back, though, and remember that all this work we're doing is centered in the Pathways projects that we've been working on for 8+ years. And I see Nicole Costales, who is our Title V director that did a lot of work with the Pathways. And early on, we did a fantastic job of creating maps around the clear curricular pathways for employment, further education. But I really felt like my charge since I've gotten here is to help students choose and enter their pathway. Because, as we found out, even if students have the clearest path, it doesn't help if students can't get onto it. As I found out this morning, trying to get from Florence to campus on Overfield. So when we think about what we're doing with students as they come onto the college, it kind of reminds me of my first community college job where I was doing recruiting in Colorado for Northeastern Junior College. And every year I got to go to Durango for the college fair out there and traveled north of what they called the $1 Million Highway. And it was an amazing road. But if you took your eye off the road, you ended up at the bottom of it. And when we think about our mountain roads we travel with our students, we really have two solutions for them. One, we can build a hospital at the bottom of the cliff, or we can add the guardrails at the top of the cliff. Coming out of the pandemic was a very challenging transition. And I feel like in August, when we were getting ready for the start of the semester, our enrollment centers felt like enrollment ERs. We were triaging students left and right to just get them started here. So we've been doing a lot of work, and specifically with this new student onboarding program that really solidifies these guardrails to get on. All students, as they start the process to get started at CAC, they now, as of last Monday, have to go through this onboarding program. It does add 30 to 45 minutes to the application process, but because students are getting all the enrollment processes figured out and how to pay for college figured out, by the time they get to new student orientation, we're not doing enrollment cleanup, but Dane Leanhouse is taking them to the next level on what they have to do day one to be successful in the classrooms. So to kind of take a look at what this looks like, I want to take you to the web page real fast. And I think we're ready for this transition here, because anybody can see this here when we go to the web page. As students get started, all they come to admissions, and either on application or apply now, they come to finding your starting point. All of these were created through the Title V work. Nicole Kostalish brought together a committee together. I know Dr. Karen Hine did all the work on that, and we clearly identified who are our students and where they're coming. So when they get here, they all take their own pathway here, and one of the first things they do is they figure out their area of interest and start studying the maps. Then they get to our onboarding program. Which right away shows them some beautiful pictures of campus and some of our programs. And then the students see the same language they did on what type of student they are. So for our first-time college students, when you look, they get to do all the modules, admissions, financial aid, paying for college, additional resources, advising. But when you look at our early college students, they only do admissions, early college programs, and Blackboard. So it's very much streamlined with the information that's most relevant to them. At that point, can we get back to the PowerPoint? Okay, so every student type has their own pathway to give them information that's most relevant to them. At the end of this, all students complete a survey, and until they do the survey, they don't get the button that takes them to the admissions application. One of the most important questions we ask them is, what is your why? Why are you coming to CAC? Why now? This was live last Monday. As of this morning, I think we had 270 students go through this already. And some of the answers I pulled late last week is someone said, I want to learn new skills, grow as a person, work towards a career I'm proud of. I want to build a meaningful career in healthcare where I can help patients while continuing to grow professionally. Someone else said, I want to attend CAC to become a psychologist to help others in need. I wish I had someone to talk to growing up. And then someone said, I need to retake a class I failed at the university. So different reasons for why students come to us, but our student stories, as you saw at graduation, are amazing. And right away, we're capturing them and addressing them from the get-go. We also get feedback on what they thought about the program. In general, they've liked the information. They've liked the short videos that feature our students in them, but they have said, we want more information about outcomes and internships. We want more information about academic programs and where they lead there, which is fantastic because we continue to look at that feedback from students and make adjustments to it there. So when you look at all this pathway work, really the big question is this stuff working? And this was a chart I pulled last Thursday looking at fall registration, where our fall 2026 line is the one that you can see is still incomplete. So at this point, where we had 96 days before the fall semester began, we have this year 2,338 students registered. Last year, at that same point, we had 2,036. So that was a growth of about 300 more duplicated headcount students registered. 2 years ago, you had to go back down to those lower lines. At this point, we had 1,490 students registered at this point. So for the fall semester, we've seen a 57% increase in 2 years over students registered and ready to go. In addition, as of this morning, we've had 690 students already complete the Pinal Promise Scholarship for the fall. Better keep raising money, Craig. In addition, we re-implemented our Stop for the Drop program that we brought back the drop for non-payment. Didn't impact enrollment, but it did get more students with financial aid complete and payment plans set up. In addition, Nicole completed the advising redesign that really allowed her advisors to become experts in area, and the work her team is doing fantastic. Scott Hamilton this last year redesigned our new student recruitment program where we had outreach coordinators, 3 of them in high schools over 300 times this last year, helping students get ready to get started here in the fall. Both Nicole and Scott also kind of redesigned our communication journeys for new and current students via text and email. So this stuff is working out. And based on that, it's time for the big reveal of the scoreboard. There it is.
The Wizard of Oz.
The yellow brick road is now complete.
All right.
All the way, although I might have
like
to put
it.
some
Yeah.
guardrails on the path there. We're getting the students to our Emerald City as CAC, but when we go back to our mission work, this really is true student learning. We are teaching our students what it takes to start college. We are reaching them earlier to make sure they are ready to get going. We're building a level of understanding of the processes and expectations of what it means to be at college. And then we're empowering them to take ownership of getting the processes and the payment information figured out. And that we're in the business of changing lives, and we're becoming more effective at that every year. To preempt some questions from the board, I did want to pull up my fall course schedule here. It's tough to see where you're at, but if you look at those bottom 2 lines, you can see in the fall of 2026, I am currently registered for Art 107, Drawing 1, and Art 109, Color Theory. So if you call me back in the future, hopefully my scorecards look a little bit better. Finally, I'll open up to questions, but we had a lot of great information today as we celebrate the end of the year. Just adding to that, we had over 1,000 students complete certificates or degrees. That's the most we've had post-pandemic. We had over 400 students participate in graduation Friday. That's the most we've had post-pandemic. Our fall to spring retention over 2 years from the work everybody's doing has gone from about 49% to about 66%. About 4 years, we've about doubled the amount of Pell Grants that we've awarded students from just over $6 million to $12 million. And this spring, we hit just over 49,000 credits, which is the most we've had since the spring of 2019. We're at 47,500. So you look at all the people here, they are doing good work to help keep this college moving forward. And on that, I'll take any questions.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Any questions? It was a heck of a presentation.
Your enthusiasm is wonderful.
Thank you.
Everybody likes your drawing, so you're getting better and better.
We'll see after this fall.
Really amazing work with the team. All of you, thank you so much for all that, because that's what it's all about, getting out to students. So thank you. Next item, we have early childhood education, Dr. Patrick Moyer.
Okay, sorry, I'm not as tall as Andy. That's not a high bar, Andy. Good afternoon, Mary Lou, Dr. Elliott, Board President Lopez, distinguished board members and guests. So what I want to do today is I get the honor of presenting for a couple of our groups, our academic groups on the WIGs, and just want to frame that a little bit for you guys, and you're going to hear some common threads from what you've already heard. And so we try to think about how are we engineering value for our students. That's really, at the end of the day, what we're doing, right? And so I'm going to start, for you to frame what I'm about to talk about, I'm going to start with where Chris Emlett, she's our Director of Early Childhood Education, and going through this, she presented us one time, and she shared with us, she said, when we learn our student stories and we really listen to them, it's amazing what they do to show up. And I thought that was pretty powerful. And then the second statement she said was, and I love this, turning it back on her as a leader, what are we doing to show up for our students? And I love that framing for where we're about to go here. And I actually add one more thing to that for all of us, and that is, how do we show up for each other? Right? So there's another piece of this that we don't talk about, and that's how we show up for each other, and I think that matters too. And so along those lines, so I'm going to, so their WIG, so that is understanding who it is that we're serving, who are our students. And so it's really important to understand that landscape. And one of the things is so listening to their stories. And Chris says this is the most vulnerable serving the most vulnerable. Early childhood education is really it's a struggle to get resources. Even though we all know that that's the foundation for all we do in life, it's very difficult to get resources for that field. And so, they're operating from a deficit, but still they bring it every day. And then the students that they're serving in a field that's impacted by this systemic underinvestment, serving economically diverse population. And then they're non-traditional. So these are mostly people who are working for a living, and they're working professionals are trying to balance all kinds of things, as you're going to hear in the final story. But often and this is also an introduction to them into higher ed. And so what they're really trying to do, the essence of their WIG is listening to their students, first of all, connecting with them, understanding their story, and then serving them as individuals. And I love that. And I really think that's what we can bring as a special sauce at CAC to distinguish us from anybody else is we get to listen to their story and serve students one-on-one. I think we heard a lot about that already. So some very specific things that they do is they touch them from the beginning. They try to connect with students in addition to the excellent work that Dean Dave and Dean Andy do with their teams. Now we're transitioning the handshake to us. We're going to see them day in and day out when they are struggling. We're the ones that are going to be in the trenches with them every day. And so building that connection from the beginning. Some initial collaborating connect meetings. They do a really good job of connecting students with each other to build that network. To know their professor, get to meet them informally, and then partway through the semester, the monitoring. How are you doing? If you're not doing well, reaching out. Hey, Pat, how's it going? I noticed this. Haven't seen you for a week. Those kinds of things. And then direct communications about encouraging their persistence. Then, of course, the registration reminders. And again, this is a way we work very closely with Dean Andy's group. And so just these really intentional supports that they've done a really great job of. And so you can't see this, but I'll share it with you. Of course, you know the 70 by 27. And so when they look at their persistence from fall to spring this year, all of their degreed programs, the AA and the AAS, that averages 85% retention, which is awesome. Then they're a little bit lower with that with their certificates, but overall they're at 68%. But I think it's important to make the distinction between the certificates and the AA and AAS degrees. And so just to understand that helps you to address the issue as well. So, and I want to that's the hard data. And then there's the anecdotal data, which is really powerful for those who were at commencement. And one of their majors was incredibly powerful. I won't go into her personal story, but it was horrific. And she shared with us publicly at that, and it was a horrific, but her point, she graduated, she got basically all of these 4 degrees you see up here, she has one of each of those, right? And she's a single mom who has been through some horrific abuse things. And so I'm getting goosebumps just saying this because her message was so powerful. But she acknowledged the connection and the learning and the family from the ECE community. And I think hers is a story that personifies this persistence and strength in the community spirit and how you can truly make a difference. And that's just one student's story. So I think it's important to take the hard data, the global data, but also the individual anecdotal stories, which are really, really powerful. So that's ECE, and I'll take questions on ECE before I do the visual and performing arts. Any questions on ECE?
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
I would like to put that in even a bigger framework, that we all know that workforce development is a huge impact to us here in Pinal County as well as the rest of the state. Early childhood education, childcare is foundational to workforce pipeline success. And I think we need to share that with the team who are the instructors and to know that you are fulfilling a even bigger picture. So not only is it to the individual students who are going to be successful, but it also fits into that bigger picture of how the county is going to be successful in economic development. So I didn't want to lose that thought and wanted to share that with you and just thank you for all that you're doing, because it's a huge gap, a huge gap.
Yes, that's right. I attended a First Things First event on early childhood, training and that type of thing, and it was remarkable because a lot of people think, well, there's places I could take my child to somebody else's house and all that, but they don't get the education they need to when they get to the point of going into kindergarten. And there's a huge gap there in a lot of communities. So thank you for what you do. I think yeah, Board Member Kasuga said it's really, really critical to the workforce. So thank you so much. All right, any other questions on that? Okay, let's move forward to
Thank
the
you for
visual
sharing.
and performing arts.
All right, so while this is getting, oh, there we go. So visual and performing arts is, I want to also frame that, and since I've been here, the very brief time that I've been here, I have noticed that visual and performing arts is a huge part of the heartbeat of our presence here on campus. And so the events that they do, I love the events that they have, and it's basic, and I won't go into those details, but I think that really, when you see things going on here campus, I think they bring a lot of that vibe to the campus. And one thing that I think is really important in higher ed, and I think we do a really good job of in some of these departments, and VPA is one that I like to say this about, and that is, we talked in the beginning about engineering value for our students, and I honestly believe that the way to engineer value today is to be more than a GPA and a transcript. Everybody has a GPA, everybody has a transcript, but what's your story? And being a place where students can come and write their unique story, I think is really valuable, and I think that really is, defining their identity, and I think they do a really good job of that, which I'm going to talk a little bit about with the story at the end, but I love that the visual and performing arts allows for that. And so what their wigs, so starting with the numbers, so I won't go into the details of this, but basically, essentially, they've gone from 69 to 72%. It's good to know, Andy, that you're part of that 72% moving forward. That's very exciting, right? So we're very excited to have you as part of that. So thank you. And I guarantee you that you'll get a value added with your artistic skills. I can guarantee that. I promise that. And if not, come and see the dean, all right? So, and these are the specific numbers. And not only is it the retention, and again, this is a lot because there's the art, there's the DMA, which is digital media arts, there's the EIT, and there's music. So it's not only the retention numbers going from 68 or 69 to 72%, but also of interest is the 169 to 194 total students, which is awesome, right? So it's not just the retention, but it's also the increase in new students. And so the WIGs for their group are focused on, again, a welcome event, the belongingness, making families, and this welcome event is not just for students, but it was for families, it was for kids, and I'll show you some pictures. It was really a fun event. And then to update the Blackboard and the core shells, and also to move to Blackboard the videos, the usual videos, course videos to the usual platform in Blackboard. And that may not sound like a big deal, but I'll come back to that. It really is a pretty major thing. So if you want some really nice things done, of course, do get the DMA department to do it. So these are their advertisements for their fall onboarding event. And so the three that you see there, the difference is the difference whether it's DMA or art or performing arts. And so at the bottom there, they have the contact information for those specific faculty for this welcome party. And so the event, and I won't go into the details of these pictures, but I do want, this was the event which was in this room right here. Yes, this big room. It was this room combined with the other one. And so all kinds of events and food and art on display, current students, former students, graduates. But the common theme when you look at these pictures are, to me, two things. One is how engaged everybody is in the activities, and two, how many smiles you see. And so this was really a good event to create a good vibe to start the semester. You had kids, children, but you also had the students themselves doing these crafts and a lot of the adults doing them as well. So it was just a really cool event to create a vibe of welcomeness and belongingness and community to start the semester, which I thought was really good, and then had some activities where some artists did some drawings for the students. And then the second piece is the Blackboard page, and it may not sound like that's much, but this is their home these days. Right? We took classes, this wasn't our home, but this is your home for your class, and it matters what this looks like, going from something that looks like this to something that looks like this, right? And so it just looks different, it looks more welcoming. And so so what they've done is everybody in their department now uses these core shells for their online learning management system. And I can tell you, from a dean's point of view, I would say 50 to 60% of the issues that get to me are because of communication, right? And it's just they're not getting the right information. I didn't know this. I didn't see this. I get reports on these things, and I've gotten one from this group all year long, right? And so connect your dots, right? And so this matters. When you have something that looks like this and communicates the information through the mechanism, students are very, hopefully we change this, but they're very hesitant to come and actually talk to an adult these days. And so this matters. How they interface with us is through this. And so the clarity of this matters. And so I think their group has done an excellent job of doing this, and I know that it makes a big difference in retention. So I'm just going to end with one story, as I mentioned earlier, about the more than just a GPA and a transcript. They had a student this year in DMA, which was Amelia Sheely, and she won a public logo contest for the city of Coolidge for the Cotton Express service buses. So her logo won the competition and is going to be on the buses. How cool is that? I'm talking about having a story to tell in addition to a GPA and a transcript. So our people are crushing it. And I'm just really proud of the work that they're doing to invest in our students collectively and individually. I think these things really matter, and it's making a difference. So thank you for listening, and I'd love to take on any questions anybody has.
Any questions? Any questions from the board? Logo is really cool. So
It was cool.
We really enjoyed that. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. Next, we have call to the board. So I'll start with Board Member Odiorn.
Nothing for me this week, thanks.
Okay, Board Member Mueling.
Well, I just want to say I enjoyed the graduation. I'll be glad when the performing arts thing is ready to go because we were burning up on that stage. So, but it was really great, and the two students that spoke, if you did not hear them, you should have. They were excellent. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. Board Member Kasuga.
Nothing for me this.
Okay. Vice President Walker.
I have a poem.
All right.
I read a book of poems called Letters from Heaven, and this is one of my favorite ones. I used it a lot when I was a chaplain at the hospital, and it goes like, I'd give you great wings if I had such things, but by me you may not have such proper. I'd give you the spectrum if I had any colors, but there's no variations to offer. I give you the world, that's what you gave to me, although it seems very odd. What you gave to me is what I've used to serve some other God. And what you did for me back on Calvary, as I've been told the story, worth all of my praise, so for all of my days, I'll tell of your power and glory. Now here's the story. It was during Passover in 0033. The Romans and the Pharisees nailed Jesus to a tree. The leaders got together and said, we'll see this man no more. Little did they know exactly what God had in store. And there's power in the message because the gospel is his load. It's been a strong road. And there's grace and mercy spreading far and wide. That's what God has given us to hide our sins inside.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to talk about, I'm really excited to see the Performing Arts Building go up, and it's just moving fast. It's really good. Also, the approval of the baccalaureate programs, that's really helpful to all the students, so that's moving forward, and that's great to see. And anxious to see the welding, the mobile welding program going out and working with different businesses on that workforce development. And also, again, the graduation, as I said, was awesome. A little warm, but it was okay. I felt bad for the students in the robes, and they had all their fans out, so yeah, we'll be moving in the new building. That'll be great for everybody. And with that, we're going into executive session next. We have A, personnel recruitment appointment of intern CAC president, and B, pending threatening claims, discussion regarding status of 3 pending claims against Central Arizona College, Span versus CAC, Montijo versus CAC, and Henry versus CAC. And then we'll reconvene on number 16 after that event. Take some action. Okay, I need a motion to go into executive session. A second. Have a motion second to go into executive session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Chair votes aye. Opposed? we're going to go into executive session. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Go ahead, please. Okay, wonderful. Well, I'm going to go ahead and call for a motion to get us out of executive session. Have a second? Have a motion and second to get out of executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Chair votes aye. Opposed? We're out of executive session. So we're back into regular session. Item number 16, discussion, approval, disapproval of option 1, selection of a personnel consulting firm, develop and implement a recruitment strategy for interim CAC president. Option 2, direct the CAC chief human resource officer to create an external internal employment offering for interim CAC president. Option 3, offer an extension of employment to current CAC president on an as-needed basis. Okay, do I have a motion for one of those?
Select the personnel consulting firm of ZRG Registry to develop and implement a recruiting strategy for selecting an interim CAC president.
Okay, so that's up there, option 1, correct? And motion is second for option 1, and all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so next we have, the next meeting will occur on September 15th, 2026, unless we have any other meetings that we'd have virtually or have to call for. So with that, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you all for attending.